Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and I want to show you how you can easily install the AWE carbon fiber intake into your BMW M3 or M4. All right, so let's talk about this project a little bit before we do it and we install this gorgeous carbon fiber system into this M4. Now, intakes, they can change the way your car sounds because you'll hear your turbos a little bit more. They can add a little bit of power, but also with a gorgeous carbon fiber system like this, they change the way it looks too. I don't know, with a system like this in my car, I'm gonna wanna have my hood up at events rather than closed. But this is a really simple install. I'm gonna walk you through the whole process. It takes a few simple tools, and as always, a reminder, everything you need will be linked in the description below, so make sure to check that out. But let's go ahead, let's jump in, let's get this started. All right, so one of the very first things we wanna do is pull off these top plastic covers. You've got a series of quarter turn 10mm nuts here right at the top, so go ahead and turn those. You also have those little plastic rivets here on each corner, on each side, so go ahead and pull those plastic rivets out by pulling out or pulling up the center pin, and then these will come right off. Now, here on the positive side, make sure that you can take a rubber glove or something similar and put it over the top of your positive battery post right here. Last thing you want to do is touch that with tools or with your carbon strut bar as we take this off. But you're going to want to take those covers off on both sides. You can also take your vanity cover off just simply by lifting up. There's little rubber feet here on the bottom. Sometimes they can get loose and stick to the posts. So if you have one that comes off, go ahead and just pull it back off the post and push it back into your vanity cover. Go ahead and take this and set it safely aside. But we're going to want to take both of those covers off, and then we're going to take our carbon fiber strut bar off. So let me get that done, and then I'll show you what else also needs to come off. All right, so as far as your carbon fiber strut bar is concerned, you'll have 13mm bolts in the back. Sometimes you have 2, sometimes you have 3, depending on your car setup. This has 3. On my M2, I actually had 2 in the back. But go ahead and take all 3 of those out on both sides. Now, keep in mind the ones in the back are long. Here in the front, you've got 2 shorter 13mm, so you want to use the same bolts when you put them back in. Now, you'll also have a 10mm bolt here that secures the reservoir to your carbon fiber strut bar. Once all of those are out, you can just lift this rubber gasket on this side. Simply just lift up your strut bar, feed it out the other side, because you don't have to undo all that rubber gasketing on that side. You can just take it out. Go ahead and take this and set it safely aside. All right, so now that that is out, now let's talk about actually taking our OEM intakes out. Now, a couple of things. So first of all, with your MAF sensor right here, you just depress the little clip on the plug and pull it out. It's going to be the same over here on the passenger side as well, so go ahead and unplug those. Underneath this return hose off of your charge cooler, just pick it up and pull it out of those clips, and you'll see you've got a vacuum hose right here. You just press in the collar on both sides and then push it back, and then it's loose as well. Now, lastly, what you're going to want to do is undo the hose clamp here at this far end right here. Once that's loose, pretty much the entire intake is loose. Now, there's a little support little bar here in the center. You just press those little tabs and kind of walk it down and underneath, and then once that's loose, you can just walk it up and off its feet, and it's up and out of the car at that point. And then you're going to do the same to the other side. Now, let's bounce over because I want to talk about the other side a little bit, but go ahead and just take that and set it safely aside. All right, so here on the passenger side, again, you're going to want to unplug your MAF sensor and just take that cable and get it out of the way. This side is, you just want to be a little bit more careful. Now, there's this compression collar on this pipe that you want to press back to get it off of the pipe of the airbox. Now, there's a little plastic bracket that holds this pipe into place right back here in the back. So you don't want to press on this too hard. I did that once and pressed on it way too hard and broke that bracket off. It wasn't the end of the world, but it also was kind of a hassle. So you just want to be gentle when you press that back. Once that's free, you just take the airbox and just pull and get it up off those rubber grommets. And you got one that's a little bit tight down here at the bottom, which is a good thing. There you go. And then go ahead and just walk that up and out. So let's talk about transferring the MAF sensors from the OEM to the new airboxes. Okay, so the whole center piping here is for the driver's side is already all put together, and I wanted to do this for you so you get a sense of what it looks like when it's all done, because it all fits together very logically, and I actually think it makes more sense once it's all together. Now, when you get this, your filter, this box, and the pipe are all going to be in separate pieces. So the very first thing you want to do is take this box, and you can tell which one is the right one because it's got the big cutout where this pipe will connect. Now, These are a 5mm Allen, and you have to take the supplied bolts, fit this into place. And what I did was I just gently screwed in each one of these bolts so the fitment would be really good before I tightened all 4 down. Because if you tighten down one, you might have a little bit of a fitment problem on all the rest. So tighten that all together, get it all nice and snug, and keep in mind this is metal going into carbon fiber and other metal, so just snug, don't crank on them too much. So that's all into place. Now the air filter as well. Now the air filter only goes in one direction. It's kind of this oblong triangular shape. As you can see, the flat part here is here on the top, and the longer triangular point goes down into the box. As you turn this around, you'll find there's only one way it goes in. You can't install it wrong because it'll stick up high or it'll be a lump here. There really is only one orientation. But because it's kind of an unusual shape, I wanted to show you what it looks like when it's already in place. So once the tube is connected to the box, you can take the air filter, fit it on. It's got your typical hose clamp here. Tighten that down. Make sure that the worm drive in the hose clamp is not sitting up here at the top or something else that'll interfere with the cover. Okay, so really, really simple. Lastly, your MAF sensor. Go ahead and take these off. So there's a T20 bolt over on the OEM pipes. And then you have the same thing here where we're gonna take and put these on. Now, these MAF sensors only go in one direction. Now, if you look really closely, there's a little arrow right there that shows what direction the air should be going, so that will help. But in addition, the way this is shaped, it only goes in one way. If you actually take and reverse it, the holes won't line up at all. So it's really nice that you can't essentially misinstall these. But be gentle, these are really fragile. So take it, fit it down into place really snugly. Go ahead and put the bolts in, tighten them down snug. You don't have to crank on them too hard. So with all of that done, as you can tell, it's all intact. And I am sincerely really impressed with the quality of this build. The carbon fiber looks great. The setup is great. This is really a fantastic, fantastically designed setup. So now that all that is done, we actually have a different thing that we need to do than I've done in any other intake. If you notice this loop right back here in the back. So when this is installed and down flat, this loop is going to be down low, all the way down there. I'm going to move my camera. I'm going to show you what we're going to do because this is actually going to go under the post for that reservoir, which is really cool. So let me move my camera. We'll show you what that looks like. All right, so here's your reservoir. Remember that 10mm we took out right here. It's sitting, and I've already moved it so you can see it. It's sitting on a rubber grommet, very similar to this right down here at the bottom. You've got a T30 bolt right here, so you want to take that out. Take this reservoir because it has this groove, and this bracket has got it like a tooth on it that hangs onto it. Press down and away, and then it'll lift up and away from that grommet right there. And there's a post right there on the bottom of that reservoir. So when we install this, we're going to fit this all into place, and that loop right here on the back part of that is going to go down, and then the post from the reservoir is going to go down through the hole. So it's going to take a little bit of juggling as we get it all into place. Also with this reservoir, there's a connector at the bottom. There's a connector here at the top. Be gentle, and I really want to stress that, especially these semi-flexible kind of plastic hoses. Be gentle with this because I've broken several of these hoses on different cars, so they shear off right here because they get brittle with age and temperature. So don't be just cranking on this reservoir because you could snap that off and that would be a huge drag, okay? So don't do that. So just pick it up, gently just kind of lift it up and out of the way. There's enough room and play in it that it'll move around. Get it set. Let me rearrange my camera, and then we're gonna fit the intake into place, and you're making great headway. All right, guys, so now that you have this whole driver's side all together really nicely, as we were just talking about, and we've moved that reservoir, now what you want to do is fit this all into place. So a couple of things before we do it. Now, right here, you've got your clean air intake or your fresh air intake that's coming in, that this has to fit down and kind of over. So as we're fitting this in, we're going to fit it down over that pipe. You also have your feet that are going to go in, but you'll also have this flange that's going to go back there. So what you may need to do is take this with one hand and lift your reservoir with the other hand and get it all fit into place, and also make sure that it necks into the end of your intake right there. Okay, so I know that's a lot of instruction all at once, but it's actually easier than it sounds. So again, you just take it, I'm just going to fit it into the intake kind of gently on this side, and the last thing we want to do is score up all this carbon fiber, right? So just be really gentle as you move through all of this. My reservoir's in the way, so I'm just going to pick it up. Just going to keep fitting it into place. Now, the fresh air intake right here is kind of hard to see. You can see it with your eye, but it's almost impossible to film, but you can see it right here. And as I can see, that neck is starting to kind of, fit down over it. My intake is in good. just gonna keep walking this whole thing through, hold my reservoir up so that back flange fits into place really nicely and is lined up nicely. As you can see, about right there. It's all completely into place now. It's all set in very, very nicely. So all you need to do is take your reservoir, pick this back up, and get this picked up and around, and fit that back post into the grommet right there. Now, impossible to see right now, but in the back of where that grommet is, the flange on this is laying on top of that grommet, and you take the post from the reservoir and fit it in, and then fit it back under this little locking brace right here. And again, remember there's that ridge with the little tooth on it to help hold it in place. Then you can put your T30 back in. But as you can see, it's all really secure and really nice. The other thing that's really great is this is incredibly solid. It is not going anywhere at all. Now, lastly, the other thing you can do while you're here, if you have pinned down your hose coming out of your charge cooler like I just did, go ahead and clear that out of space. You can take your vacuum hose, fit it into place. You should have heard a little bit of a click right there when it went on. There's no reason why you couldn't plug in your MAF sensor right now too, because we go ahead and take that. It'll click when that little bracket goes back into place. So you're all basically installed with the exception of the cover and putting some of this stuff back together. Go ahead and put your T30 back in here. Go ahead and take the center bracket right here and you can take it and fit it up in as well. And then also press this down into your hose over on this side. Now, keep in mind on this side, you've got to walk a little bit of a balance with your hose clamp. It is possible to crack carbon fiber. So you want to make sure that it's tight enough that you have a seal. When you tighten that hose clamp down, you can hold the hose on both sides and see if it moves or separates. Make sure it's tight, but you don't want to just crank on it forever because it would be possible to crack the carbon fiber and that would really, really suck, okay? So catch up to all of this, get this all back into place, your T30, your hose clamp, and all the rest, and then we'll move on to the passenger side. Okay, so here's the passenger side, so let's jump into it here. Obviously, I've transferred the MAF as I did before. Again, these are those 5mm Allens. It only goes in one direction. You've got your arrow to see what direction the airflow goes, but it only fits in one way. Now, this one is a little bit easier to fit in. You've got that same intake here that's going to fit to your fresh air intake, so as you fit this down into place, this tends to go more just straight down in to get it in here over the intake, and then with that collar on that pipe pulled back to fit in. Now, there's one thing you're going to need to do. There's a rubber grommet on the bottom of the OEM one. It just take it off, fit it on. It fits it in this orientation, so the little clip should be on the wheel side. So as this goes down into place, this little clip fits over the metal ridge of that support strut right there. So it fits all down into place really simply. So just fit it down in, fit the collar back. Just be patient, work it in slowly. Get it onto the fresh air pipe. If you need to move any hoses, make sure that your little grommet feet are all fitting in really nicely. And then just work it down into place until it sits completely into place. Once that's done, you can tighten your hose clamp, you can plug in your MAF sensor, and then you're almost done. We're gonna put our covers on, clean up, put everything back together, but good job, we're almost done. Okay, so as you can see, we are almost done. We're just putting the covers on. The covers really only go on one side. You line them up with the holes on each side. They actually overhang a little bit on both sides, but they'll fit in just like that. You're gonna use the rest of your supplied bolts to put those into place, and then you're all done. So make sure to double check all of your fitment. Like for example, in this case, I don't have the MAF sensor plugged back in, so I'm just gonna do that right now. And it also goes back in this clip right here too, which I'm gonna do in just a second. But double check all of your fitment, then I'll walk you through really quickly putting your strut bar back on, putting the covers back on, and you're done. All right, so as you can see, both covers are on. Looks really, really good. Just get them to fit all into place and get your T5 bolts back in. And we really are at reassembly here, but this is your point where you want to double check all of your fitment before you put the rest of everything back together. So walking kind of end to end, again, obviously we're back together here. We've got our T30 in here. The reservoir obviously is down on its post, or this wouldn't be in the right place. Our MAF is plugged in. Our vacuum line here is plugged in, and it makes that click sound. Now, one change, on your OEM, you have those little clips that held onto this pipe. So obviously that's not there anymore, so you can just easily set that here. I wouldn't worry about it at all being loose. There's nothing in the world that's going to hit through any of this. If you really wanted to and you're worried about it, you could always put a zip tie or something on either side of this to hold it up against the intake pipe. But I'm not going to worry about it. I think it's going to look great regardless, and it's not going to be a problem, and I wouldn't want those zip ties there. So this is going to be just fine. It's just a difference from the OEM. As we walk away around here to the passenger side, see our MAF sensors in, all of our connections are tight. Our connections are tight here. You can see with our little worm drive stuck up right there, all of that's tight. This is set down nicely into place, and the cover's in place as well. Now, one quick thing that I've noticed, there's a ground post right here. You've got a big brown ground connection that comes up, or a wire that comes up and connects to this post. The wire was perfectly horizontal and actually was in the way of the lip of this a little bit. So I loosened that nut with a crescent wrench, pushed the wire down so it's coming straight up from below, and tightened the nut back down, and then this has no fitment problems. But all in all, it's in, looks great. So now we're just going to walk through the reverse of what we did when we took it all apart. Very first thing you want to do is grab your carbon strut bar, slide it in through that side, slide it in, lay it down on that side, put that rubber gasket back over the top of it, and then we're going to put all of our 13 millimeters back in. Also put your 10 millimeter bolt back in right there. I'll have the proper torque values for your 13 millimeter bolts in the description, so make sure to check that out. But we'll get that all back on, the cover's back on, and then we'll be done. All right, so as you can see, all that's back in and back together. So now we just want to throw the covers back on. These are really simple. If you put a rubber glove here, which I highly recommend, you can pull that out of the way. Now there's little fingers here on the end that you're just going to fit back in on the end right there, just like that, and lay this back down into place. So get that down just like that. Go ahead and put your plastic rivet back in, quarter turn on all the top, do both sides, and you're done. Looks really good. I am really impressed with the build quality of this kit. Looks fantastic. Can't wait to fire the car up just to make sure that everything's working great. But this really was an easy, simple install and looks absolutely fantastic. All right, so you're all done. Go ahead and clean up, put your tools away. All right, guys, all done. And as you can see, this really is an easy project and something you can easily do at home with a few simple tools. There's no reason why you would have to have a shop do work like this, and I highly encourage you to do it yourself. Looks fantastic and adds a little bit of power, adds some sound, adds some great looks when you make a choice of something like this carbon fiber, which looks fantastic. So thank you so much to AWE. I am really and sincerely impressed with the build quality of this kit, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I can't wait for you to see it if you do the same. I think you're going to be equally impressed. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. It makes a huge difference for me and my channel. Please click subscribe and the little alarm bell. I would really appreciate it. I have a ton of projects coming. You're not going to believe it. Just incredible amount of work this coming year. And I look forward to seeing you on my next video.